And then Dion is gonna get the list when you show them the right volume. Dion's gonna count you in so you can start.
Do I start by saying his name or? Okay.
Gonna count him in.
I'm here with Mr. Crandell, and today I'm going to be interviewing him. What year did you start working at Bethlehem Steel?
1966.
Okay. What position did you work at?
Oh, many through the years. Over 47 years. I started out as in a clerical position. Then I went from there to what was then called the pipe mill, and I counted pipe and recorded the pipe for incentive purposes for the operators to get paid. Then from there, I went to the plant engineering department, where I was again a clerk, which was called a squad clerk. I worked for 2 engineers and 2 teams of draftsmen, getting prints and things like that for them. And also keeping the files and all that stuff. Then from there, I went to the general manager's office, where I was a clerk. I was the clerk for the general manager of the plant. Then I moved on to the plate mill, and there I distributed orders out to the mill for them to roll certain sizes for plates. Then from there, I went to the rod and wire mill, where I became an expediter. An expediter is a person that pushes orders through the system, makes sure that they get, the customer gets the proper product at the proper time. Then, during this time, I got my degree, and I went into what was called the Technical Trainee Program. I was in that for 6 months, and then after your 6 months, if they have a position available for you that fits what you can do, I was assigned to a place called the primary mills. The primary mills actually produced slabs of steel that went on to further processing. I stayed there for 8 years, and from that point, I went on to become general foreman of the mills, and once that job then totally changed because that department shut down because there was a new development in how slabs were made, which was called a continuous caster. I moved from there back to the plate mill, where they put me in the position of general foreman of shipping and processing for plates. Then the plate mill shut down. When the plate mill shut down, I was offered a position of coordinator of community affairs and public affairs for the whole plant. Then I stayed in that position until Bethlehem Steel, when I sold the business. When the new owner came in, which was ISG, I was given the position of property manager. So I managed all the property, all the different things that take place on the property, from cutting grass to dealing with the county and state on various issues. Then from that position, I stayed in that position about 6 years, and then my last position with them is I was made manager of what's called material control, which consists of 46 different warehouses and bringing equipment to the various facets of production and mills. And then I stayed there until August of 2012, when the total plant shut down.
What were the conditions there at Bethlehem Steel?
The conditions, the environmental conditions,
Mhm.
dirty, dirty, and, but a lot of hardworking people. Now, they made good money. The conditions at times, it was always hot. In the wintertime, it was hot, in most places where most people worked. So the conditions weren't the best, of course. It wasn't like working in an office. Fortunately, I was in an office most of the time, but for the majority of the people at the plant, they dealt with a lot of bad conditions.
What were the major accidents?
Major accidents?
Mhm.
Well, there was, and it depends on how far you go back. At one time, prior to me even being there, things were very, very dangerous. And there were deaths. There were people that were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they were doing the wrong thing at that time. That did take place. A lot of injuries took place in tin manufacturing, because tin being very thin gauge, was very sharp. So there was a lot of cuts and bruises and things like that. But yes, there was quite a few accidents, but Sparrows Point was probably, in its prime, was probably the leader in safety of all steel mills in the United States anyway, and certainly around the world.
Were you surprised that it closed?
No, I personally was not. In fact, to be honest with you, I worked for a gentleman when I was in management development who was a real financial whiz. And during our meetings, we'd have one meeting, staff meeting every Monday morning, and he would give us numbers, and it was a group of 6 of us. And he would give us numbers, and what he would say, now this was probably 6, 8 years before it actually closed, and he said, I don't know how we're still in business. So it wasn't a surprise. There was a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it had to do with the strategy of the upper echelon of management. A lot of it had to do with customers. The customer base was very insecure about Sparrows Point because there was a lot of turmoil between the union and the company, and there was walkouts at times and things of that nature that took place when negotiations didn't go so well, which then the customer didn't get their product because the workers weren't there to produce. So, and there was a lot of other reasons too, but most of them financial. And one of the things that Bethlehem, being a company that was reaching on being 100 years old, had what is called legacy costs, which Bethlehem, and today businesses totally changed. Bethlehem took care of its employees, providing pensions, providing health insurance, the best medical insurance you could get. Also, if someone retired and they passed away, Bethlehem would continue those pensions to that person's spouse or husband or wife, and would also, in a roundabout way, take care of the children that were involved with it in the families. So that legacy cost was kept forward by Bethlehem. Once Bethlehem was gone, it decreased rapidly.
How many years did you work there for?
I worked 2 summers. when I was in high school. After graduating from high school, I worked a summer, and one summer my first year of college. And then after that, I worked 47 more years.
Wow. What did you like about it?
The money, as most people would say. As far as, just talking about Bethlehem Steel and not the plant itself, Bethlehem Steel had a family type of environment where people helped one another. And after Bethlehem left, there was a lot of jobs that were reduced and cut, and some people that had one job were given 2 other jobs and things like that. And that started to fall apart once Bethlehem had sold the plant.
What were your hours that you worked there for?
Well, I worked all daylight shift or daylight jobs. I did work some what they call turn work, which was around the clock, 3 different shifts. I did work that for probably 4 years after I came out of being a tech trainee, but mostly I was like a 9-to-5 guy.
What was the dangers about your job?
Me personally, very little. The time that I was working shift work, I was working in an area that was called the primary mills, which was slabbing mills and soaking pits. And that was very dangerous because you're dealing with a lot of hot material, a lot of big machinery, and you had to be very careful as to where you went and what was going on. You had to know all the time what was happening. Fortunately, I never was scarred one time with anything.
What was the hardest thing about your job?
Well, it depends on which job. I had a lot of different jobs, as I mentioned. I was in a lot of different places. In fact, there isn't one place in that plant that I hadn't been. As property manager, the hardest part about that was trying to keep the property looking presentable, and that was very difficult because for 3,100 acres, I had 3 people to do that job. So it was a lot of nights we spent down here trying to keep the place, other than our day work, the 3 guys and myself would stay and make sure everything looked good as it could be.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your time at Bethlehem Steel?
Well, it was my life, so. No, it was a great place. It was a tough place, but it was a great place to work. I raised a family, sent 2 kids to college. Thankfully I could do that. Now my son's the councilman for this district. My daughter, I have a younger daughter, who is, with the money that I was able to save during the years I worked there, she's now going into her senior year at Virginia Commonwealth. So Bethlehem was good to me. And Bethlehem did something that was very unusual. They made you save, which in today's world, that doesn't really happen. People were just out there on their own, and Bethlehem took care of their own. I can't say enough about, good I had it. But tough jobs, a lot of people had tough jobs. Fortunately, I was not involved in most of those. I guess I lucked out, but a lot of skilled people. I mean, any job that you can think of, it was at Sparrows Point, whether it be a plumber, whether it be electricians, whether it be mechanics, whether it be people that repair trucks, people that are out there on the mill working. There was very talented, skilled workforce. And Bethlehem enhanced that and gave people a lot of possibilities as to where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. They had an apprenticeship program, and that apprenticeship program could take you just about to any job that you had a choice to get. So there was a lot of opportunities, and that's
This is a lockdown, Joe. Repeat, this is a lockdown.